She turned back to Max, lying in the snow, panting heavily, but his eyes still held that quiet fire. She knelt and whispered, her voice breaking, "You saved me." Then the wind shifted again. A branch creaked. Footsteps, soft but certain, approached. From behind. Claire's body tensed once more as a new shadow emerged from the trees. She stood quickly, raising the gun again, but the figure that emerged from the forest was nothing like the one before. It was an old man, tall, stooped with age, wrapped in a weathered wool coat. A walking stick steadied his slow steps, and a heavy scarf was pulled down to reveal a kind, time-worn face. His eyes, pale blue and gentle, studied her with concern but no fear. "Easy now," he said, holding one hand up. "I mean no harm." Claire didn't lower the gun right away. "Who are you?" "I'm Samuel Granger," he replied. "I live just past the ridge." "I saw the whole thing. Heard the shot." Claire's arms dropped slightly. Max lifted his head at sound of the old man's voice and let out a low, tired whine. Samuel's eyes shifted to the dog and a sharp breath caught in his chest. He stepped closer slowly, knees bending as he lowered his feet to the snow. "Max," Claire blinked. "You know him?" Samuel nodded, voice shaking. "He belonged to my son Daniel, a soldier loyal to the bone." His fingers reached out, gently brushing Max's ear. The dog didn't flinch. Instead, he let out another soft whimper and nudged his nose into the man's palm. Samuel closed his eyes for a long moment. When Daniel died, Max stayed behind. He waited, always waiting. I thought he was lost." Claire knelt beside them, her throat tight. Samuel's jaw clenched, sorrow turning to quiet rage. "That man, the one who attacked you, he served with my son, but betrayed him." And Max never forgot. Max looked between them, his eyes full of memory, and Claire realized that Max hadn't just survived, he had endured. The walk back to Samuel's cabin was slow and silent. Clara supported Max with both hands as the old man led the way through the snow-covered trail. Wind rattled the branches above, but underfoot the path felt steady, like the worst had passed. The cabin was small, worn with time, but warm. Smoke curled from the chimney and a soft orange glow seeped through the frosted windows. Inside, it smelled of cedar, firewood, and old tea. Claire helped Max lie down near the hearth, close to the warmth. His breathing slowed as his body relaxed, finally safe. She sat beside him, still holding his paw, watching the flicker of firelight dance across his fur. For the first time in days, Max closed his eyes, not from pain, but from peace. The cabin was quiet, wrapped in soft crackle of firewood and the distant howl of wind outside. Claire sat on the floor next to Max, gently pressing a warm cloth to his side. The bleeding had slowed, and his breathing was steadying, but the worry still clung to her like the frost outside the windows. Across the room, Mr. Granger added another log to the stove. "He'll make it," he said softly, glancing at Max. "He's tougher than most men I've known." Claire smiled faintly, brushing a hand over Max's head. "So it seems," but there was a sound. A knock. No, not a knock. A bang. Both Claire and Granger froze. Another bang. Harder. The door shuttered under the force. Claire jumped to her feet, heart hammering. She grabbed the pistol lying on the unbreakable. Mr. Granger peeked through the window. His voice dropped to a whisper. "It's him." The door burst open with a sharp crack, and Ethan Crow stepped into the cabin, snow whipping around him like ghosts. His face was flushed, lips curled into a snarl. He pointed a gun directly at Claire. "I warned you," he hissed. "You should have walked away." Max struggled to stand, growling low and deep. His legs trembled, but his spirit didn't. "Don't," Claire said, firmly, stepping between Ethan and Max. "You're in it doing this again." Ethan didn't fez it. He pulled a trigger. The shot rang out a horrible, deafening crack. Max lunged forward at the same moment, throwing his body into Claire and taking the bullet. Meant for her. He hit the ground with a sharp yelp. No. Claire screamed, collapsing beside him, her hands already searching for Thewand, for hope, for anything. Ethan advanced, face full of cold fury. But before he could take another step, Mr. Granger was there. With a growl of his own, he swung his heavy walking stick with surprising strength, striking Ethan's arm. The gun flew from his hand and landed beneath the table. Claire didn't wait. She lunged for the weapon and pointed it at him, tears streaming down her face, hands shaking. "Get out!" she shouted. "Now!" Ethan stared at her, then at Max, and something flickered in his eyes. Regret, recognition. It was gone before she could name it. Head turned, rage burning in his features, and disappeared into the snow on Seagain. Claire dropped the gun with a clatter. She crawled back to Max, her hands shaking as she pressed against his side. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please stay." The night passed slowly. Max lay curled by the fire, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. His breathing shallow but steady. Mr. Granger had worked quickly cleaning and bandaging the wound. By some miracle, the bullet had missed anything vital. But the pain in Claire's chest hadn't eased. She sat beside Max, her back against the wall, watching the rise and fall of his chest like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Her hand rested on his neck, feeling the faint thump of his heartbeat beneath her fingers. "You're going to be okay," she whispered over and over like a prayer. Sometime before dawn, Max stirred. He opened his eyes just a crack and let out a faint familiar whine. His paw stretched toward her hand. Claire broke into tears, leaning over toppers, her forehead gently against his. "You're still here," she whispered. "Yes, stayed." Mr. Granger stood nearby, silent, watching them with glassy eyes. He didn't just survive. He chose to protect you. That's not something you can teach a dog. Claire looked down at Max. He wasn't just a rescue. He wasn't just an animal left behind. He was something more, family. As the first light of morning broke through the frost-covered windows, Claire allowed herself to breathe. Waitver came next. Whether Ethan returned or Thepas caught up again, she knew she wouldn't face it alone. She had Max now, not just beside her, but within her heart. And Max, he had already chosen her long before the first rope was. The wind howled through the dense pine trees as snowflakes danced in the fading light. Claire Walker tightened her scarf and kept her eyes on the road, the headlights of her truck slicing through the misty whiteness. Her shift at the rural animal clinic had ended late again, just like most nights lately. She was used to silence, but tonight, the quiet felt heavier somehow. As she rounded a bend near the edge of the forest preserve, something made her foot ease off the gas. A sound faint, strained, like a whimper being swallowed by the wind. Claire slowed to a crawl, rolling down her window. The cold slapped her face, but there it was again, a trembling, broken cry. It wasn't the wind. It was something, someone hurt, alive. She pulled over, heart already racing. Years of working with animals had sharpened her instincts. This wasn't just a noise. It was a call for help. Claire grabbed her flashlight and stepped into the snow, boots crunching softly. The woods loomed ahead, dark and still, blanketed in white. She hesitated. The sensible part of her said to stay in the truck, but something else, a deeper pull, made her walk forward. The sound came again, a whine almost pleading, and Claire knew she wasn't leaving until she found what was crying out in the dark. Claire moved deeper into the woods, her flashlight flickering across twisted branches and snow-covered roots. The forest was silent except for the crunch of her boots and the soft, broken whimpering growing clearer with every step. Her breath rose in clouds before her, sharp in the freezing air. Then, just beyond a cluster of fir trees, she saw it. At the base of an old maple, half buried in snow, lay a German shepherd, large, still, and bound tightly by a frayed rope cutting into his legs. His thick black and tan fur was stiff with ice. Blood marked the snow beneath him in faint smears. But he made no move as the beam of her light found him. The dog's eyes fluttered open, slow and labored, as if even that small effort drained what little strength he had left. His gaze found hers, locking with a quiet intensity that made Claire forget the cold biting her cheeks. His irises were a deep, almost glassy brown, so dark they were nearly black. And yet somehow they were alive with everything he couldn't say. She saw the pain first, a deep gnawing kind, not just from the wounds on his body, but the kind that comes from being left behind. Then came fear, silent but raw, etched in the way his muscles tensed despite his weakness. But underneath it all, buried like a fading ember, there was something else. Hope, fragile, worn, but still clinging. Claire felt her throat tighten as if something invisible had wrapped around it. Her instincts told her not to move too fast, not to startle him, but he didn't growl. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't even look away. He just stared at her, searching as if silently asking, "Are you the one who won't leave me too?" She knelt lower, her knees soaking into the snow. The air between them was frozen, but her heart burned with a heat she couldn't explain. Whoever had left him like this hadn't just walked away. They'd condemned him. The rope binding his legs was so tight it had rubbed his skin raw, leaving angry, swollen impressions. One paw was twisted slightly inward, as if he'd tried to move and collapsed mid-effort. Claire reached out slowly, carefully, her gloved hand trembling. "Hey there, buddy," she whispered, her voice catching. "I'm not here to hurt you." The dog flinched, a small twitch of his head. But he didn't pull away. He stayed. And in that stillness, she felt it. The faintest thread of trust. Brittle, but real. A tear slid down Claire's cheek before she even noticed. She blinked hard and let her hand rest just above his paw, not touching, only offering. "I see you," she breathed. "You're not alone anymore. I've got you, and I'm not going to walk away." Claire exhaled, steadying herself as her knees sank deeper into the snow. The cold had soaked through her jeans, but she didn't care. Her eyes were locked on the rope, thick, wet, and painfully tight. With a shaking hand, Claire reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her folding knife. Her fingers fumbled at first, stiff from the cold and nerves. She clicked the blade open and brought it near the first knot. It was frozen solid, the fibers crusted with ice and blood. She whispered softly, "Easy, boy. It's going to be okay." Even though she wasn't sure if he believed her yet, Max didn't move, but his breathing was shallow and uneven. Every few seconds, a slight tremble ran through his body. Claire could hear his teeth chattering, an involuntary broken rhythm that mirrored her own heart. She began slicing through the first knot, careful not to press too deep. Each motion was slow, deliberate. She flinched every time the blade snagged, terrified of cutting him by accident. The snow soaked into her gloves, numbing her fingertips. But she kept going. Every second counted. Halfway through the first knot, a memory hit her like a wave. Her childhood dog, Murphy, the one who used to sleep by her bed during thunderstorms and bark at shadows in the hallway. He was the reason she'd become a vet in the first place. He'd once stood between her and danger without hesitation. Now here she was returning that same kind of devotion to a stranger. The rope finally gave way with a quiet snap. Max let out a breath, deeper, slower, as if a piece of weight had lifted. Claire paused, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. His fur was soaked and cold to the touch, but he didn't pull away. "You're doing good," she whispered. one knot at a time. And though Max was still trembling, she could feel it now. A flicker of trust growing stronger beneath the fear. Claire was halfway through the second knot when she felt it. A change in the air, a subtle shift. The silence of the forest, which had been still and heavy, suddenly felt tense like it was. Holding its breath, then came the sound. A twig snapped behind her. She froze. Slowly she turned her head, heart slamming against her ribs. Between the trees, barely visible in the dim light, a figure stood watching, tall, still, wrapped in a dark hooded coat, face hidden in shadow. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Who's there?" Claire called out, her voice tight, trembling. Figure stepped forward, boots crunching on snow. Not rushing, not afraid, deliberate. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and coarse like gravel. "That dog isn't your concern." Claire rose to her feet, knife still in hand. She stepped instinctively in front of Max, whose ears were now perked despite his weakness. A low growl rumbled in his throat, barely audible, but defiant. The man glanced down at the dog, his jaw clenched. He was left here for a reason. Claire's grip on the knife tightened. "Tied up, bleeding, and freezing to death. That was your reason?" He didn't answer. His silence said enough. Her breath came fast in the cold. "He's not just a dog, is he?" A smirk ghosted across the man's face. "He was loyal to someone who didn't deserve it. And when that someone fell, he stayed behind. Some call that noble. I call it foolish." Claire looked back at Max. His eyes hadn't left the man. They were filled with something dark. Not fear, but recognition. She turned back, voice low and steady. "I don't care what your reasons are. You're not taking him." The man took a step closer. "You think you can protect him? That animal is marked." Claire's hands were shaking, but she stood her ground. "Then he's marked by me now." For a heartbeat, the woods went completely silent again. No wind, no birds, just the tension between three lives tangled in something deeper than any of them could explain. And deep in Max's chest, the growl grew louder. The man's eyes narrowed as Claire stood between him and the wounded dog. Snowflakes continued to fall, quiet and unassuming, a stark contrast to the fire rising in her chest. "You don't understand what you're getting into," he said, voice steady, almost casual, as if this was just another conversation to him. "No," Claire replied, not backing down. "I think I do, and I'm not letting you hurt him again." Then it happened. His hand moved fast toward his coat pocket, a glint of metal. Claire reacted without thinking. She dropped to her knees beside Max and pulled his body closer, shielding. "Him! Don't!" she shouted, holding the knife out with trembling hands. The man ignored her warning. In one fluid motion, he raised the pistol and aimed. A shot rang out. The bullet tore into the snow just inches from where Claire had been kneeling. She gasped, heart lurching into her throat. Her ears rang from the sound, but before the man could fire again, Max lunged. It wasn't strong or graceful. He was still weak, but it was enough. Just moments before, Claire had slashed through the final rope in a single desperate motion, the last knot giving way as the gun came up. With a surge of strength born from instinct and something deeper, Max hurled himself at the man's legs. The impact knocked the man off balance, and he stumbled backward with a startled curse. The gun slipped from his grip and vanished into the snow. Claire didn't hesitate. She scrambled forward, found the weapon half buried, and snatched it up with numb fingers. Her breath was ragged, pulse racing as she stood and pointed the gun at him. "Get away from us," she shouted, voice cracking under the weight of adrenaline and fear. The man looked at her, face contorted with frustration, and stepped back. "You'll regret this." He growled. "Maybe," she said, her hands shaking, "but I won't regret saving him." For a long second he stood there, chest rising and falling. Then, with one last glare, he turned and disappeared into the trees. Claire's shoulders sagged as the tension drained from her body.